At the Democratic National Convention, former President Clinton preaches to us on the sanctity of the oral orifice. Meanwhile, in California, Governor Newsom plays his climate change fiddle as the wildfires rage on. Unlike him, Los Angeles Mayor Garcetti cuts the power to his citizens who now have to party in the dark. Protesters and rioters try to compete with the wildfires by pushing into suburban areas. Spoiler alert, it doesn't turn out well. The United States Postal Service becomes the next conspiracy point of the Democratic Party in the unrelenting onslaught of the Trump administration. Dr. Fauci has a moment of clarity to the likes we haven't heard in quite some time. Actually, never. All this in a discussion on election security. This is the Jake and Drake Show. Thanks for tuning in. Welcome, everybody. It is definitely heating up as we get closer to the 2020 general election. Let's cut right to the chase and get into former President Clinton lecturing us on how sacred the Oval Office is in its entirety.
So, yeah, at the Democratic National Convention this last week, there was a lot going on, and seeing Clinton touted out there, I mean, I'm not a Democrat, I'm not a Republican, but seeing him touted out there as the voice of reason, it really kind of irked me. I mean, especially with the photos coming out the day before. If I were him, I probably would have been better off just coughing a lot and canceling the performance.
I don't even know where to begin. I mean, the guy was the governor of Arkansas for who knows how many years, and it's no secret that Hillary Clinton went out of her way to silence the people that accused him of rape, sexual assault, sexual misconduct in general, and the guy ended up becoming the president and lied to the American public on national television that he didn't have sex with a woman, and now he's talking badly about an incumbent president, about how the guy doesn't keep the Oval Office sacred. It's just mind-boggling. It's just another example of how the left will turn around and attack the right for something that they clearly do all the time.
I don't think it was a good choice of theirs to feature him as a speaker when Biden as well is being accused of sexual assault by Tara Reade, and everybody's they're kind of sweeping that under the rug. Oh, the whole me too, but unless it's against their candidates sort of thing. Others, I mean, the DNC as well. I mean, Obama as well kind of was attacking Trump, and as far as I recall, this was the first time that the speakers were attacking the sitting president versus touting their own policies and plans.
And to make things clear, like just so the audience knows, it's not that presidents don't attack other presidents. It's just that they don't attack them at the committee. Like, they don't attack them at the convention level. They normally just, if they're talking shit, they talk shit in an interview. They talk shit, behind closed doors. But when it comes to a national convention, it's kind of an unwritten rule. There's a lot of those in a lot of other efficacies of organizations, but you don't attack a sitting president. When you had your chance. That's kind of how I look at it. Clinton, you had your chance. You did some good things. You did a lot of bad things. Obama, you did a couple good things. You did a lot of bad things. So how about you just talk about how Sleepy Joe's not so sleepy?
Well, I mean, it comes back to, their policy really is hold your nose, vote for Biden. He's not Trump. That's pretty much their policy platform right now. I mean, they came out talking about, they came out talking about gun control, and I think that's going to backfire on them this year. I know historically they're making gun control a policy has worked for them, but with the public, the general public, not the active screaming left and right, but the general public seeing what's going on, going out and getting guns to protect themselves during lockdown, during riots, I think that's going to actually kind of push those people away. Because the middle America is realizing that the government isn't there to cover them and help them out when they need it. If your house is being burned down and converged on by rioters, what are you going to do? Call the police? No, they're not going to come out there and help you. So I think that is actually a misstep for them as well.
And you can't even protect your home, as evident by the couple in Missouri there's plenty of media coverage on how the wife showed up with a pistol and the man showed up with an AR-15 variant out in the front of their house after the gates to their private community had been broken down by rioters. And the rioters approached their house, and essentially, two people with, we could assume, loaded weapons pushed them away. I mean, what else does discourage people from looting, from burning, from raping your wife, or physically harming either one of you? But even still, like, they were well within their rights, yet they are being prosecuted by the district attorney in Missouri over there. So it's gonna be
But even
so,
if they were just peacefully walking down the street and two people standing there with their firearms, that's not on their property. That is not illegal. So I mean, that's going to get tossed out. And to also interject, that pistol was in an inoperable condition.
but
It,
you got to understand, like, even though it was like, it doesn't matter. That it's perception, man. So you have intent and you have perception, right? Like,
yeah,
I could intend to tell you that you have a beautiful head of hair, but the perception is essentially, well, he made me feel uncomfortable, and therefore he sexually harassed me. It's all about perception and intent, and in this case, the intent was to keep people off my fucking lawn, and the way they intended it, the way they perceived it was, oh, they're gonna hurt us or whatever. But I mean, how else are you gonna keep violent people peaceful if they're not gonna keep themselves peaceful? Like, I will be more than inclined to do the same as those two. So something else about that Clinton speech is President Obama's wife came out and lambasted the president, as well as President Obama himself, which, like I said, was very unprecedented. It's just something you don't see. President Obama's wife was one during the presidency to say, when they go low, we go high, basically saying, we turn the other cheek. So we go from we turn the other cheek to now we're going to talk a lot of crap about the sitting president. And once again, it's like, orange man bad. Orange man bad. Joe's a good guy. And I think that's in a nutshell, that's what I got out of the DNC. DNC 2020 was all about Joe's a good guy. He's empathetic.
well, it wasn't even about Joe's a good guy. It's just Joe's not Trump. I mean, they brought out they had I can't believe what they were thinking. They brought out people and presented people who were, community leaders and things like that. Well, one of their guests was Donna Hilton, who was convicted for kidnapping, rape, torture, and murder. And it's kind of insane the direction they're going. So we're going to get to see, next week or this upcoming week, we're going to have the Republicans have their convention. So we'll get to see what kind of craziness comes out of that side. This just, in my opinion, this just shows how nuts the bipartisanship has become in our country. Just everybody's each side's trying to cater to the most extreme of each side. So we'll see how the Republicans and the right respond.
And just to an extent, I'd like to extend an olive branch. Like, I'm not here to shit on Democrats necessarily. What I am here to shit on is the leftists, not liberals, not Democrats, leftists. Because, like you said, everybody's going out and buying guns. It's not a Republican thing. It's not a Democratic thing. Like, I'm sure, there are Democrats that they don't believe everything that I believe or everything that you believe, but they believe some things that, like, maybe we can both come to an agreement on. But you have the extreme leftists that just want to tear down the country. They want to get rid of gun control. They want to open borders. They want to tax the crap out of everybody. They want to give away everything free. And they just don't understand the value of money. They don't understand the value of hard work. They don't understand what, like, somebody like you, what you have done to be where you are now, what I have done to be where I am now. Nobody.
They don't want to get rid of gun control. They want to get rid of guns.
Well, I'm sorry. You're right. But what I'm saying is, they want free stuff. And something I learned as a kid was TINSTAFL. It was an acronym I learned, and it was like, there's no such thing as a free lunch. If you got something for free, somebody paid for it somewhere. Maybe you didn't, but there's no such thing as a free lunch. So these people that are far extreme left, They just have no idea of how money works, how the government works, how anything works. I'm not gonna say they're not responsible. I'm sure a lot of these people that do feel this way, I'm sure that they pay their taxes, and maybe they pay their bills, and maybe they feel like they're stuck in a rut. But dude, I can tell you, from the time I was 16 working until the time that I was probably about 28, like that was my life. Like I was struggling. I had bills to pay. I had a car note. I had car insurance. I had a phone bill. I had, when I moved out of the barracks, I had utilities. I had money, but I worked my ass off to get there. From the age of 20 to, so I spent 8 long years. Actually, I lied. I spent, I think it was about 29 or 30 that I actually moved out of the barracks. So it wasn't until I was 29 or 30 that I actually moved out of the barracks. The government gave me more money because I worked my way up the Army corporate ladder. But at that point, I still had to pay bills. So it wasn't like all the money. You got to budget. You got to think. You gotta be smart about what. Yeah, just because somebody else is 30 and they didn't join the Army, and they're driving a nice car, and they're wearing nice clothes, like I never sat there and felt sorry for myself. I realized what I was doing, and I realized what my plan was, because at some point you got to sit down and make a plan with yourself. But like these leftists they're going to take your guns, they're going to make the government bigger, they're going to tax the crap out of you, and essentially your misery is going to be their happiness. I don't even think it would end there. Like I really don't.
Well, we can do a whole segment on the beliefs of the modern socialist movement and just how it doesn't work, for hours and hours, because it just, whenever I see these things, I mean, initially with things going on of late, you think, oh, okay, people out there protesting and for a good cause, yeah, Black Lives Matter, but you know what? That is important for people to acknowledge, but you got to realize that those protests have now shifted from Black Lives Matter to destroy the United States of America as we know it.
Hmm. Yeah. Moving along. How about those California wildfires, my dude?
Man, California's. I escaped California, and I am so glad.
When did you move?
What, 3.5 years ago ish? I don't remember now.
Yeah, totally. I totally remember when you moved. All I remember was
But
you just giving me shit because I didn't go to your wedding. That's the only thing I remember.
yep, you didn't.
So,
But yeah, California's on fire. I mean, the weather hasn't helped. Like they have a storm coming in, but it's not. It's just lightning storm. It's not actual rain, and so all these lightning strikes are hitting and starting fires because, well, it's dry and I know everybody's going to say, oh, it's because of climate change. No, it's not climate change though. It isn't climate change. It's just California's decades of environmental mismanagement. They've done that for years. I recall when I lived there as a much younger years, that they placed many restrictions on logging and forestry. So without forestry and removing of some of this wood and dried tinder, you're setting the perfect environment for fires.
and it wasn't until 2018. It was, I think Governor Brown was in office that they actually passed a bill that actually allowed them to go ahead and do those preventive measures. And unfortunately, you got to look at, like, you're talking about decades and decades of mismanagement. We're talking like controlled burns, something I see in the great state of Texas. I could drive up and down, any state highway, and at least every other summer, I can see people out there with, diesel tanks lighting the grass on fire and doing controlled burns to prevent shit like this. And then something else is you have the what they're called fire breaks. So essentially, what they'll do is they'll cut huge ditches in the middle of the forest. Don't quote me on how big they are, but they're probably about 3 foot wide. It's just a giant ditch they go and they dig in with like a backhoe. And what that does is it prevents the basically a fuel transfer. So if there was a forest fire, there's a fuel break right there. At that fire break, that fire is not going to jump 3 feet, and it prevents the forest fire from spreading further. But what you have is you have a lot of, and I say you have a lot of leftist ideologues that are sitting in the representative and the state senate, and like, oh, you have wildlife to consider and you have air pollution. Okay, that's a reasonable thing, but I want you to think of where we are now. How much wildlife do you think has been displaced, and how much air pollution do you think CO2 has been caused by? What are we up to now? I couldn't even tell you, but what I can tell you is since 2018, since they passed that bill, there's a lot of forestry experts that have said that because it has taken so long for them to actually enact, forest fire preventive measures, that they're like they just don't have the personnel or the time. Obviously the seasons are going to roll along. You're going to have some dry seasons. You have they are 20 million acres behind, and this is what the experts are saying. 20 million acres. I don't even know how big that state is. I really don't. But
well, one thing about the. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I was just saying, like, we're talking about birds. Birds need places to live, and we need our air to be green and clean. Well, yes, but if you do preventive measures now, it's just like getting an oil change for your car. It's just like getting a checkup from your doctor.
Well, all that started with that spotted owl, and I get it, wanting to save the animals and things like that. But you're right. The over regulation and banning and things like that is just detrimental. Even with the whole climate change argument, the 2019 Cal Fire report, it shows that California's national forest, all the laws and things protecting it from timber harvesting, is now actually a net contributor to the atmospheric carbon dioxide because of the fires and trees killed by insects and disease. So they're not actually helping anything. They're doing more harm. If they actually let licensed foresters go in, remove the trees, do the breaks, things like that, they would be just fine, ahead of the curve, and can feel all hippie and good about what they're doing. The other now this is purely speculation from a forester we know up here in Idaho, and that is, their theory is that a lot of the trouble that California is having fighting these fires is because they have a lack of manpower, and that lack of manpower is because the prisons and such, which have traditionally helped out and staffed these firefighting efforts, they're all locked down. So they're losing that free labor, so to speak, in combating the fires. Now, that's just a theory as to some of the problems, but it makes perfect sense. If the prisons are on lockdown and aren't letting people out to do these things, that's a reason why they have less people. I mean, they're calling for Canada and Australia to send firefighters now to help them out. So pretty bad over there. I'm going to be traveling down there in a couple weeks and not looking forward to the air quality.
Just put on that magical cloth mask that you should be wearing everywhere you go, and I think it'd be fine. I think it'll all pan out for the better. Yeah.
Ultimately.
Think of the fiscal loss. Like, think of like all the decades that they could have been logging responsibly. Think of all the revenue that could have brought into the state.
That there's that, but I'm more concerned with, like, Big Basin. If you've ever had the chance, well, I don't know now, the reports I've heard, they haven't even been able to go in and really get a good look at it to see what kind of damage was done. But Big Basin was one of the most beautiful parks, the giant redwoods and the trees and such. I think, if I recall correctly, it was California's first state park as well. It was just beautiful. You walk out there and you can't help but feel one with nature, one with the universe. And I'm more concerned about that sort of loss.
Mm.
Sure, it really sucks when people's homes are burned. But when 1,000-year-old trees are burned down, that disturbs.
No, for sure, for sure. It's definitely very sad. Uh, I mean, as bad as things are, the best I can hope for, the best thing, best case scenario is that people learn from this. Like people learn from this, and it doesn't happen again. There's no reason that I mean, because let's think of it, right? Like if we want nature to be nature, right? Then humans can't be humans. Like humans just can't be anywhere near. Like there can't be houses, there can't be campgrounds because humans will fuck things up. That's just kind of inherent in our nature. We're not perfect. So if we want things to be nature, we just need to put like a giant concrete wall around the around all these forests to where nothing can get in them and they can just be forests. We can't be hiking because you never know. We may start a fire because we want to cook some food because we were hiking and we're hungry, and that could cause
Or
the
you may
forest fire.
step on a naked spotted newt.
Well, I'm talking I'm talking as far as the forest fires go, but like you can't have it both ways. You have to understand that that we're trying to live together. Like that's the goal. The goal is we aren't trying to take over the forest, but we are trying to conserve what we do have. And the conservation process involves a little bit of critical thinking in which, okay, well, if something does happen, because ultimately we can go by Murphy's law that if anything bad will happen, it will. What's the worst that will happen? A forest fire? Okay, well, how do we slow it down or stop it? You know, Slowing it down being like the ultimate plan there. Fire breaks, controlled burns, controlled logging. Like you're not going to be able to stop before. A lot of those forest fires that happen from like sparks, cigarettes, things of that nature. And then of course now you actually have like you have thunderstorms causing some of that, and thunderstorms aren't people, but up until 2019, 85% of the forest fires that were caused, which was like in the excess of 51,000 people had actually caused forest fires. Like, so that being said, if we're attributing to 85% of the forest fires that are occurring, like, wouldn't it ring a bell that maybe we need to think conservation? And and conservation, like I said, isn't, don't think of the negative in the sense that you're pulling out trees, and think of it like you're going to kill a couple thousand trees, but you're going to save like 65 to 1,000 acres of forest. It's just,
Well, you have to cull the herd sometimes. With anything, it's just you take out the weaker, and that ultimately builds a better, stronger forest. So I'm hoping that with this fire season and everything that's going on, that that Cal Fire report is going to get a lot more attention, and things will be changing over there soon.
Mm. Speaking of California, how about we get into your best friend, Mayor
Yeah.
Garcetti?
So, Los Angeles. A week or so, a couple weeks ago, um, Mayor Garcetti had said that people were having parties and not listening to the authorities about social distancing and whatnot, living their lives and expressing their rights and freedoms in gathering, in social gatherings, without holding signs. um, so
Yeah.
so a week ago on Friday, the 7th, he announced that they're going to shut down, he'd have the Department of Water and Power has permission to shut down electricity and water for cases where large gatherings are taking place. Well, this last week, the city of LA cut the power to a mansion that was rented by some TikTok stars. Now, I don't know any of these guys. You might know their names. Other people might know their names, but Bryce Hall, Noah Beck, and Blake Gray. Yeah. But so they cut their power. The funny thing is, they cut the power to the house they lived in, not the house that they were having the party in. So they were happy. I guess it was somebody's 21st birthday. They rented a home in Encino to have this party. And because, they thought they were being scofflaws, it was really a punitive action. They didn't arrest them. They just cut their power at the home they slept in versus the house they partied in. So it had nothing to do with stopping the party. It had completely everything to do with just being punitive and saying F you.
I mean, the arguments I could make for doing something like that are greatly outweighed by the arguments why you wouldn't do something like that. Off the top of my head, okay, yes, we have this flu. Oh my gosh, China gave it to us. I don't know why anybody on the far left side won't just fucking admit the truth is that, if China had fucking sailed a straight ship, that we wouldn't fucking be here, or to a way lesser extent, but it's here. Let's look at, pros and cons. The con is death. The original game plan was stopping the spread. That was going to be like 15 days, and here we are. Started in February, like the beginning of February. We're almost at September, and we are still like locking people down and treating them like, you would treat your 6-year-old for stealing cookies from the cookie jar. Like, you're talking about a country, right? A country. The idea of this country is solely founded on fuck you. Fuck you, government. We want our own religion. Fuck you, government. We want to, if we're gonna pay taxes, we want some kind of say on. Like, the giant history, the whole history of this country is based on fuck you. The Civil War. Oh, fuck you. We want slaves. Fuck you. We don't believe in slaves. Okay, like, that is this country. This country is a giant middle finger. I mean, I'm not saying this country is bad. This country is fucking great. That's why it's great. And you're just abusing your power. Like, there's people being arrested for opening salons. People being arrested for opening gyms. Like, these people need to make a living. And in this case, these people obviously are celebrating. So, worst case scenario, everybody at this party has COVID. Okay? Have you heard anything about, like, the hospital? Like, are the hospitals, like, in LA County, are they overwhelmed with COVID patients? In fact, I remember hearing that, like, I would say about 3 months ago, that LA was doing pretty well with the COVID. And on the best case scenario, nobody has fucking COVID, and they all just went to a fucking party. Nobody is having a super spreader party. That wasn't the intent of the party. The intent of the party was to celebrate a birthday. So I'll tell you what. Did they know? Were people wearing masks? Did they know that? And if they did, I ask you, how did they know if people were wearing masks? How do they know if people were social distancing? You and I can go to a party and we can have a drink, and you could sit at the table, and how do they know? So that's the first question. So how does the government know whether or not we're social distancing or wearing masks? And if they know, then you almost have like a lawsuit on your hand right there. Like, do you realize the amount of fucking police work that goes into getting a warrant? Or I don't even think they went that far. I think that just someone told on them, and here we are. We're cutting off the electricity and the power, the internet, the fucking water, the gas.
There was 200 people at that, so I don't think it was difficult for them to realize that there's a large gathering there, but in violation of the edict.
The CDC guideline, which is what we're going off of, which was based off the World Health Organization guideline, was, okay, 6 feet, no mask, and if you can't do 6 feet, wear a mask. And then, and this is where we are, right? So we went from N95 masks, right, which were the ones that, like, the professionals wear, which now I can get into a fucking Walmart with a cloth mask. I have to go to work, and anytime I'm in uniform, I have to wear a mask. So it doesn't matter what the mask I'm wearing, dude. I could wear a fucking sponge on my face. That's my point. My point is the guidelines that they've given for us to basically do anything social are bullshit. They are. Because there have been studies that show that it works and studies that show it doesn't work. So when you have studies that show it works and it doesn't work, you know what you have? You don't have a fucking study. That's one. Two, how are they getting this information? 200 people showed up. Were they wearing... You don't know that they were wearing masks. What if everybody was wearing a mask and you cut off
what the argument is that it doesn't matter if they're wearing masks or not. The California law bans any gathering in a home of greater than 25 people, or indoors gathering greater than 25 people.
So was that actually passed through the representative in the Senate? Or was that something...
It is a current... under the...
It was an executive order.
Right, under the emergency powers granted.
I tell you what, though, if like I'm telling you, we come from a dissidence of like we come from a lineage of dissidents. That's where we come from, and I will tell you right now, like all the states that are having like the deaths, I'm not going to say the cases because people are going to get this. People are going to get this whether, like there was a guy. I tell you right now. So there was a guy that I work with. This is how I wear my mask. I don't have one, but I wear it right here. I wear it on my chin. When I'm at my desk and I'm talking to my buddy who's 6 feet away, he's at his desk. It's always been like that. I wear it down here. Now, when I have to go to the admin office where all the old people live, guess what I do? I fucking pull that shit up and I walk in there and I take care of business. When I come back to my office, I pull that shit down so I can fucking breathe, dude. So, this guy that I work with was wearing a cloth mask. And he was working with a unit that was on ground. And I don't know what state they're from, but they're from some fucking state. They're getting ready to deploy somewhere. He's training them. He's hitting us up all the time for shit. Hey, I need paint. Hey, I need this work order. Hey, I need food. I need water. And we're helping him out. So I got a text Friday night to not come into work for the rest of the week until they get the office cleaned. Because he tested positive for COVID. And this guy comes in and he's just talking to me all the time. He is. He's got a mask on and he's sweating his balls off and he's like, can't fucking breathe. But what good did that cloth mask do him? And I guess where I'm going with this Trokar is the whole thing is pretty fucking shady. And what I will argue, and I have no basis on it, is if it wasn't an election year, if this was 2019, or if this was 2021, I don't think we would be going through any of this shit. That's just my opinion. Nothing factual, nothing based. But whatever. You know what? If those guys are fucking TikTok stars, why are they living in California? Didn't they just raise the state taxes? You know?
I have no idea. I don't pay attention to that bullshit.
Yeah, like I would just... Dude, if I was...
I know they're talking about trying to pass a wealth tax that is retroactive for 10 years.
Dude, get the fuck out of there. Joe Rogan came over to Texas. It's a win for us. We get Joe Rogan. You know, he even though he's up in Austin's like the most liberal city in Texas, but you know, that's a win for us. You know, like fucking leave that place. Get out of there, dude. Like, for someone to turn... Like, I would rather have someone come arrest me, to be honest. If someone was going to bust me, I would rather have somebody come arrest me and pull me out of my house than turn off the power to my house, dude. Like, no. This is my house. This is what I worked for. This is what I live in. This is what I pay taxes on. This is mine. Like, how dare you deny me... Dude, if they're going to cut my power, then they can pay my fucking mortgage. Or they can pay my taxes. They can pay whatever. Like no. Bunch of bullshit. Get the fuck out of California. Moving on to the protests. Sorry about
So in Portland...
Yeah. Go ahead.
So in Portland, they're running now 87 on like day 87 straight.
We're not at 3 months yet?
Not quite. It would be 3 months from Memorial Day, which was what, 28th? So that'd be in about another week. But last week there was that video going around where a gentleman was pulled out of his vehicle and beaten in the street and was sitting there, and another guy came up and just kicked him in the head. There were a lot of rumors going around that the guy died. He did not, in fact, die. He is up, and if you look around, if you haven't heard already, he's done a couple interviews, and he has some issues coming up and may have vision problems throughout his life, but he did survive. The injuries were not life-threatening, although he was unconscious for quite a while. He like woke up came to at the hospital, and I'm not sure how long it took for rescue workers to actually get to him when he was laying there in the street. So, but they arrested the guy. So I understand, and I want to be very, very clear and distinctly distinguish between protesters and rioters. I understand people protesting, people going out, standing up for their rights, saying, "Hey, I disagree with this." I agree with it for people protesting, saying that Black Lives Matter. I agree with people protesting against governors passing unconstitutional gun laws. I agree if somebody wants to go out there and peacefully protest because they want the right to have 20 wives. It's their right to protest peacefully.
20 wives, really?
Well, I don't, that's, you do you, man. If you want 20 wives, hey, more power to you. Protest peacefully. I'll support your right to do so.
It's hard to keep one happy, but yeah.
Yes. Anybody who wants 20 wives is, I think, a masochist. But hey, I'm not one to king shame. So, but peaceful protesting is what it is. What's happening now with the riots and burning things, buildings and private property, that's not protesting. Those are criminal acts. And that I don't agree with. Yanking a guy out of his vehicle because he tried to stop a mob from beating up and robbing a transgender woman.
Is that what it was?
That's what started. He stopped his vehicle to help a transgender woman who was being beaten and robbed.
I mean, I'll be admit, like, my vision's getting worse. When I saw the video, I couldn't tell. I thought it was a woman. I just saw a woman getting beaten up, and I saw like him getting shit for it, and then I saw him climb into his vehicle and then like kind of like rev his vehicle up to like let the protesters kind of know, like, yo, I'm fucking going, like, I'm not trying to run anybody over. And his only fault was he hit a building as he was getting away. The guy hit a building.
Apparently his power steering went out.
Something
is what happened. So his power steering went out, and he ended up crashing.
He crashed, and somebody on the video said, "Hey, he crashed." And in the video, I think they said he hit a tree, but later on, it came out that he hit a building, and they all rushed him, and then they pulled him out of the car, and like you said, they beat the shit out of him. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then
and when he was just sitting there in the street, I mean, anybody can go find that. I don't want to play that for you guys because it's horrible, and I'm not into like that kind of violence porn, spreading that around. It's everywhere. You can see it. Thankfully, the dude was arrested. I'm not going to say his name because I don't want to empower him that way. But the guy, the assailant, did turn himself in and was charged with 4 felonies.
You know what's fitting about how he was found out, though, right? So there is a website that's not called Reddit, but there's another website where there was a bunch of internet sleuths that took the picture of the guy, and I think they found him later on TikTok or Snapchat, I'm not sure. And so a bunch of internet sleuths basically did the detective's job for them. That's how they found him. So the website, the website I'm talking about starts with a 4 and ends with a N. And those people actually found out who kicked this guy. He was defenseless. He was laying, beaten in almost a fetal position, and the guy came up right behind him and kicked him in the back of the head. And all that guy did was try to defend someone else getting their ass whooped. And this is the party of tolerance. This like I said. This
Well,
is
they're not. No, they're. I don't even say they're not even Democrats. They are socialists. They are. They want to destroy the country. They're going after the Democrats the same way. The Portland mayor, they basically told him to fuck off when he was trying to come out there and well, for a photo op, really. But no, they don't want that. They want their vision for America, which is socialism. I mean, the thing is, all the riots and stuff, everybody's coming out saying, "Oh no, they're not riots; they're peaceful protesters." Well, if that's the case, in Chicago, Chicago's one of the most violent cities in America. We can go on for hours about that because of the stupid gun control laws. But their mayor has police blocking off her street, her residential street, and a ban on protesters on her block. Now, protesters, there have been long-standing rules and stuff about protesters in residential areas, but that doesn't get enforced, as we've seen with different right-leaning individuals being protested.
Mm-hmm.
But Mayor Lori Lightfoot has police protection there at her street to keep protesters away.
Well, why not? Why not?
And well, yeah, security for me, but not for the E.
Let's defund the police. Yeah, let's defund the police, and unless it's my house, and then let's not. Let's pull more cops off the streets that do what they should be doing.
But ultimately, what needs to happen is the mayors, everybody, the governors, they need to say, okay, we got the message. Black Lives Matter. We're now shutting down these riots, period. And start arresting and holding people. When you arrest somebody and release them, they're going to go out there and do it again, and you're solving nothing.
My question to you, hypothetical. Two hypotheticals. It's not an election year. How long does this last? That's the first question. And the second question is, let's say Joe is the president. How long does this last?
If Joe was elected president, I think it would stop the next day.
Really?
Yep. Or fairly close to it.
What's your reason?
Because a lot of this is trying to change who's in charge. Again, it comes back to just not being pro-Joe, but being anti-Trump.
Mm-hmm.
So even though the protesters are, not necessarily Democrat, they are trying to change the system. And currently they've got the squad who are pushing the socialist values in the Democratic Party. So they could take a step back, try to sway the public to believe, oh, look, see, now everything's peaceful. But it's not as simple as that, and it's.
So maybe that would explain.
Then
that would explain why during the Senate hearing where Senator Cruz asked the Democratic senator to disavow the actions that were going on, she didn't, and instead she left the hearing. And
yeah.
And during
it's still their voter base. Mm-hmm. Whether they actually truly support the cause, it's still their voter base. So they're not going to say anything negative again. And that's why these mayors and governors have let this go on. Either that or to not seem incompetent when they're arguing with Trump.
So let's go the other route. The other hypothetical that I had was, what if this was an election year? What if this was 2018 and this is going on? How long?
Well, skipping that a second though, okay. Going back to the protests, what we've got is we've got now right-wing protesters coming out there, and they're fighting in the streets, and the cops are standing there letting them fight in the street. So this was yesterday in Portland, and
was it the good old boys?
Yeah, I think it was Proud Boys.
Proud Boys.
Some of the I don't know the different groups. There are a couple different groups. I don't follow any of those guys. I think all of them are kind of idiotic.
Mm-hmm.
But so you've got these two different groups on opposing sides that ended up battling back and forth in the streets, and the cops are just standing there. Now the cops came out. They came out with a statement saying, "Hey, ultimately what it boiled down to is, hey, we are already overworked, underpaid, underfunded, and not putting ourselves in extra danger when it looks like mutual combat." These two sides were going out engaging in fights with each other voluntarily, why not then just say, you know what, fine, both sides, you get them all together, let them duke it out, be done, arrest the winners, and call it a day.
Right, because the last time that it happened, they arrested the Proud Boys, and when the Proud Boys asked the police why they were arrested, they said because all the other combatants had run away. So the other guys ran away, and the victors, or the people that were left standing, stayed, and they were arrested.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
They really need to just arrest everybody, but they need to actually prosecute and not drop the charges and so on and so forth. So nothing's going to change until everything changes. Either the government employees being willing to stand up and say this is unacceptable and we are prosecuting. Fortunately, the that one attacker is being prosecuted and is being held, although I'm sure there's a GoFundMe out there already for his bail money.
Yeah, he did put that on his social media. He said, yeah, I'm going to jail, and I think he started a bail fund me or something of that nature. I remember reading something about that. Don't know what it's up to. I wouldn't donate to it.
So it just is basically, again, is politicization. We've got government officials politicizing the Black Lives Matter movement, not organization. I support the movement, not the organization.
Sure.
And they're politicizing it because they can use it for, points. Look, I stood up for the protester guys, so you guys should be voting for me. But it's again, both sides, Democrats and Republicans, are both sides of the same coin.
I kind of like a sidebar here. There was a show out there, man. It was Mike Pence was invited to interview, and there's a couple black gentlemen on there that were talking to him, and I think they asked him. He said, "Do you feel, hey, do Black Lives matter?" And Vice President Pence said, all lives matter. And they're like, so Black lives don't matter? He's like, no, all lives matter. And like I said on the last podcast, like I'd been put in that situation myself, and that's just kind of how I feel. Like I get what the premise is. I get what you're saying. You are saying that your lives you feel don't matter because of whatever reason. Unfortunately, the reason that they chose, like their sole reason, was police brutality. And the whole basis of police brutality is unfounded. When you look at the FBI statistics that were reported in the Wall Street Journal and the Washington Post, only 9 unarmed black men were shot, and there were a lot more white unarmed people that were shot by the police. And I get it. You're gonna throw the population that, like, okay, well, white people make up this much and black people make up this much. But the point is all the rest of the people that were shot that were black were armed, or they were unarmed getting armed. And if your premise for your movement is that our lives matter because we're getting shot by police, it's like 9 people were shot in an entire year. All these riots break out. You know how many unarmed black civilians were shot by gang members in Chicago, like in New York? So what you're saying is your lives only matter. I mean, this is what I say as a biracial kid. What you're telling me is that when it comes to the police, who have the authority to shoot you if they feel they need to, everybody knows this. Even I know this. I look white. I'm not going to press my luck, I'm just going to do what the fuck they tell me. And if it's unconstitutional or if it's immoral or illegal, like, I'm going to go home and I'm going to deal with it later. I'm going to go home alive and I'll deal with it later. I'm not going to run my mouth. I'm not going to try to get away. I'm going to comply. And I'm going to live to tell my story. The ones that are tragic are the ones that somebody was in their house and they were shot through a window. Like, things like that we shouldn't stand for. But to base your movement off of a terrible man, this man was not a saint by any means. to base your movement off a man. And something I've been a staunchest believer in is waiting till all the facts come out. It's hard to do. It really is. It's hard to wait for all the facts to come out, to wait for the dust to settle, to actually see what happened. But, you know, wait till the shit settles and then talk about the stuff. Until then, to me, I know to a lot of the media and to a lot of the people involved, they just really don't have any shame at this point. You know, you say what you want, but me, like, at the end of the day, like, if there's something that I have, it's shame. So I feel bad for the things that I do and the things that I don't do, whether it's illegal and immoral or immoral. But it's just, I don't know. You're talking to people about things that they have already set their mind to. And a majority of these people out in the streets doing the wrong thing, you know, like you said, they just want to do bad things. I don't think for the life of me that these people out here that are actually burning shit, kicking people in the back of their heads, I don't think they were ever good people. I think there may be some people out there holding some BLM signs and they mean well. But I don't think it ever crossed their mind if they were a good person and you could drop $100 and they would give you $100, you know, hey man, you dropped your money. I don't think those are the people kicking people in the back of the heads, and that's the shame of it, is that you have a movement, which it's a legitimate movement. I feel like it's founded on the wrong reason, and I feel like we shouldn't just say Black Lives Matter. Like, okay, sure, well, why do Black Lives Matter? I mean, we have brown people here, we have white people here, we have fucking purple people here, we have everybody here. What about their lives? Do their lives not matter? Are you telling me that, you know, Indians from East India aren't killed by cops? Or what are you telling me here? But did you have anything else to say on the matter?
No, we're over time.
Oh, okay. All right, moving on. The USPS. So, Nancy Pelosi called the House back from a vacation to pass a bill on USPS referendum.
Don't pay any attention to them. Their purpose is to frighten people from voting. The more chaos they can create, the more fear they can instill about, well, your vote's not going to count anyway, it won't matter, and it's probably corrupt and get caught up in some. That's their purpose. We will have vote by mail. It will be successful.
That's directed to you, Congressman. Says you're trying to frighten people from voting.
They always accuse us of, they always accuse us of what they're doing. First it was the Russia hoax, then it was the Ukraine hoax. Now it's what the president's actually out taking mailboxes, I guess someone said yesterday. So this is ridiculous. We had a tweet yesterday, you know, look, if you can protest in person, you can probably vote in person. The Democrats are the ones who want to create the chaos, the confusion. They want this mail-in ballot. And look no further than the chairwoman of the Oversight Committee, which has jurisdiction over the Postal Service. Her election was June 23rd, Chairwoman Maloney. Her election was June 23rd. She wasn't declared the winner until 2 weeks ago. It took 6 weeks to count the votes in just one congressional district primary. Now imagine when we're talking about the presidential election, state after state, all 50 states, imagine what that's the confusion and chaos the Democrats want in this election. We actually want people to vote in person. We want a real count. We want President Trump to win on election night.
So what I can tell you about this is that the way things are going, it's not looking good for the USPS. I mean, there's a plethora of reasons. We're gonna go through them, but in 1992, 1994 through 2003, those were the only years that the USPS actually turned a profit. So that means since the USPS was founded, in the 70s? I don't even know when the thing was founded, but dude, we're talking tens, 20s of years that the USPS has not made money. And getting right into it, one of the biggest things with the USPS is it has a retirement plan. I know a lot of people that got out of the military. I could name 3 off the top of my head that are working for the USPS. I could name another one that was never in the military, and he's working for the USPS now. I used to game with him a lot. But they pay they have a pool of about 600 beneficiaries for retirement, and since 2015 they've been paying about $2 billion in health and checks. So basically, income and health insurance a year. Something else to consider is that the mail volume. And when I talk about mail, we're talking about postcards, we're talking about letters to grandma, letters from grandma, and we're talking about those marketing mails that you get get this, get that, get this, newspapers that come in the mail with coupons. So less mail basically means less revenue. Now, parcels, specifically packages, things you get from Amazon or whatever, like those have gone up a lot because people are ordering more off the internet. But that is not making up for the loss of revenue. So, in a nutshell, you kind of have like the age of the internet, which kind of kicked off like shit. I want to say like 2000 to 2002. That's kind of like when I remember dial-up being a thing and people being able to like order stuff off the internet, and basically email made a huge dent in the internet, or excuse me, internet email made a huge dent in the USPS revenue.
People safely go out and vote in person, given that this year there is so much concern around the vote?
I think if carefully done according to the guidelines, there's no reason that I can see why that not be the case. For example, when you look at going to a grocery store now in many regions and counties and cities that are doing it correctly, they have X's every 6 or more feet. And it says, don't leave this spot until the person in front of you left their spot. And you can do that if you go and wear a mask, if you observe the physical distancing and don't have a crowded situation. There's no reason why you shouldn't be able to do that. I mean, obviously, if you're a person who is compromised physically or otherwise, or you don't want to take the chance, there's the situation of mail-in voting that is done for years in many places. So there's no reason why we shouldn't be able to vote in person or otherwise.
So what he's really saying is just like going grocery shopping. If you can go grocery shopping, you can go vote. And that's fine. There's nothing wrong with voting in person. Just, wear your mask, which some will argue against, but whatever. Exercise your right to vote, wear your mask, and as we just spoke about, the Postal Service, don't trust the post office.
Basically, Representative Jim Jordan kind of said the same thing. It's basically, if you can protest in person, then you can vote in person.
Yeah, and I mean, people are still going out and living their lives to an extent, protesting, whatever. If you feel like you need to carry a sign to protect yourself from coronavirus when you go vote, just make sure it doesn't have anything political on it because you can be arrested. But yeah, vote in person. It's what our foundation is based on. Sure, there's been mail-in voting for many years, but it's not to the extent that is being called for. And when we fuck.
Well, what I can say about the man, Dr. Fauci himself, is I feel like basically in a nutshell, the guy has never been very specific on anything. If you ever listen to him when he's been interviewed on news channels or he's testified before Congress, he says could, he says probably, like there's nothing certain. And I understand that it is medicine, and medicine is a practice, and we're talking about what could happen and what could probably happen as a result of a could. I get that. But what I also understand is that somebody that speaks with that kind of certainty because they're trying to be cautious, the whole political agenda that anybody's based anything off of what this guy has said is kind of like, well, could you imagine if I could, like, well, if you do raise taxes, then this could happen, or this probably could result, or if you pass national health care, or you pass student loans, or like, in a nutshell, I don't think anything's changed. Okay, if you're sick, don't fucking go out. You know, as a common courtesy to anybody else, just wear a mask. You know,
and don't lick door handles and things like that.
wash your
I
fucking
mean,
hands, wash your ass for fuck's sake. You know, don't be an asshole. Don't cough on people. Fucking cover your coughs and sneezes. Wear a mask. Go fucking vote. You know, don't sit there in your house like fucking Sleepy Joe. Don't sit in your basement. Go out and vote. Vote for who you think is going to get the job done. Vote for whatever ideals you want, but don't rely on mail-in balloting. Don't be constrained to your basement like a Sleepy Joe. Do what you're going to do. Vote how you're going to vote, but don't let this shit scare you. There's always going to be something. Mail-in balloting is pretty damn corrupt. Darian's going to cover that in a later topic. But
yeah, speaking of the mail-in voting, something I want to mention, in a Washington Post interview, they asked Dr. Fauci about mail-in voting and asked him straight up, well, is mail-in voting safer during the pandemic? He refused to answer that question because, and I quote, because that is almost certainly going to be used, or almost certainly is going to be used as a soundbite. He knows that they're looking for things just to target the administration and whatnot. It's fine. You're fine. We're all worried about a stronger than normal flu. Just live your life and do what you need to do.
And remember, when the flu was actually the flu, there was no technology, there was no medicine, so lots of people died. So essentially we have a flu 2.0. There is technology. Not that many people have died, but yes. On the
I don't want to go that far and say percentage-wise, statistically speaking, not that many have died. Still,
no, that's
hundreds of thousands of people is a lot of fucking people.
No, it's still a lot of people, but the way I put it is like I'm not blaming it on administration. I'm not blaming it on a country. I'm not saying it's China's fault. I'm not saying it's Trump's fault. What I am saying is that when the flu was relevant, when it was relevant in the 1900s, and it happened, it wiped out a lot of people. We weren't ready for it. Now we have a newer flu. It's like the transmission is the same. It's just a different genome. It's just got a different RNA pattern. That's the only thing that's different. It's a different lock. You have to figure out a key to get through that lock, and that's where we are. The difference is we have technology and we have medicine, and we have the world's greatest capitalistic economy ever. So, yeah, there's no reason to like I said before, like we are a country of descendants of dissidents, like a giant fuck you. There's no reason to live in fear when you have a country as awesome as ours are. Not saying that other countries aren't awesome, not saying that they're great, but there are a lot of things that bring people to this country. Not a lot of people emigrate, but a lot of people immigrate. You feel what I'm saying? You picking up what I'm putting down? A lot of people come here, not a lot of people leave, and there's a reason for that.
And like I said last week, those who are pushing these narratives that we're all going to die unless you wear masks, hide out in your home and whatnot, they're the ones that are turning fear into a virtue. It is much easier to control people who are fearful than it is to control those that don't, that live their life.
And I can't exactly name the quote, but it's isn't it better to like live free on your feet than die on your knees, something to that extent. I'm not going to go as far as to say that's what the virus is, but me personally, I will wear my mask when I go in public to make other people feel comfortable or protect them as much as I can. But as far as I go, like, I'm going to live my life. As long as my life doesn't interfere with someone else's, I'm in my house, I'm not wearing a mask. I'm in a park and there's someone around, I'm not wearing a mask. That's not what I do. That's not how I live. I can't fucking breathe with that goddamn thing on.
I think the quote you're thinking of was better to die free than live as slaves. And that was Frederick Douglass.
Well, there you go. And he was a great man. But unfortunately, ladies and gentlemen, that's all the time we have for today. We will be coming back at you next Sunday. The VOD will be going on Sunday. It'll be posted up on Monday. But go ahead and hit that subscribe on the UTizzle. Hit that like. If you got some comments, drop them in there. We're looking to a segment where you guys drop questions in the videos, and we answer them on the ensuing podcast. So yeah, hit that like, hit the subscribe, leave a comment, and we'll get back to you. Until then, I'm Jake.
And I'm Drake.
And this is the Jake and Drake Show. Take care.
And don't forget to go out and vote.
Yes, November 3rd.